Hello everyone, welcome to another race analysis video with Mo Allen. In this race I am racing the Zwift Epic Race in the E category on big foothills. This race was done at 7 p.m. on January 19th. This route is 69.9 kilometers with 698 meters of elevation. There ends up being 31 riders to start, although interestingly in the results only 18 riders finished. This being an E category, I assume that means 13 riders just didn't finish. It seems like a large number. I mean, it's a long route, but I don't know what other explanation there is for that discrepancy. Anyway, so this route covers a bunch of shorter climbs. So it starts with Titan's Grove Forward KOM, followed by the Zwift Forward KOM, then the Volcano KOM, then the Titan's Grove Reverse KOM, and the last climb is the Zwift Reverse KOM. So, short climbs, if any climbs were suited to my style of climbing. I'm not a climber considering my weight, which you would have seen in the profile screen there at the beginning, but if there are any climbs that I'll do well on, it's these short ones if I'm feeling strong. I do have some support here as I'm racing with my coach, D-Corridor. So for a lot of these climbs, and you'll see him message me during the ride to get on his wheel. So that's my plan, is to try, understanding how long this race is, I'm not going to try to stay with the front group. I'll try to stay where D-Corridor stays as much as I can, but knowing the discrepancy between his ability on climbing and mine, I have to be smart with how much I try to bridge gaps and stay with groups even that he's in when he wants me to stay. As it turns out, bridging a gap plays a big part in this. It's interesting. Once we get there, we'll talk about it, but it's always interesting to predict or try to figure out what would have happened had I made a different decision, what outcome it would have made at the end, but we'll talk about it when we get there. So there are no power-ups for this race, which I don't know if that's standard for these epic races, but it was a surprise to me when I went through the first arch that would have given a power-up and saw that it just gave the XP. Not exactly sure why that decision is made for these races, but if it is indeed made for all the epic races. So we've been doing these epic races for a number of weeks now on the weekends. Just a good way to get a good, hard, longer effort at the end of the week of training. I don't look forward to them, honestly. Well, I'm of two minds, because I know that they have a lot of climbing usually and or longer distance. But it's a good test at the end of the week. So it's a little tough too, because the timing isn't as often as I would like to be able to fit it in the schedule. Luckily I was able to do this one, but the time gets a little rough. It's not like, not many things are like Tour de Zwift where it's once every hour, but these are like, there's only a few times during the day, I think, maybe 1 in the morning, maybe 2 in the morning, but 1 in the later morning. rather than like, 4 or 5 o'clock. I thought that there was one previous that was at like 5 o'clock, but AM, I mean. So I was happy to see that this one was at 7 and I was able to get it done. So I am trying to just manage the effort in the beginning for sure here, trying to stay at the back and get as much draft as I can and just preserve any energy I can for the first climb. Things get spicy up front here. I mean, we're 5 minutes in, almost 4 minutes, 45 seconds, and I'm at 300 watt average. I mean, it's pretty high average to start. You'll see Dan, our D corridor, my coach, will start chatting. There he goes there. And part of his strategy was to try to get people to sort of be distracted and calm down and not attack, considering how long the ride was. I think it worked to some, I mean, we're guessing, but I think it worked to some degree. But it was a big push early on here. You'll see the group will split actually sort of early on, and we're not trying to go crazy following the front group again, considering the distance here. So I was also hoping that the relatively small field meant that things would be a little more subdued, but that was not the case, which is fine. Just another thing to realize and deal with in the moment. So I learned quickly that wasn't going to be the case, and you just recalibrate what your expectations were. So nutrition-wise, I think I made an error in choosing a banana for this ride. In my mind, 70 kilometers, I knew it was going to be close to 2 hours. I think the banana was probably a bad idea, like the solids. At the end, my stomach did sort of, it felt very full, and it was not pleasant. It made me not want to take in any more or as much drinks, which is probably an error in my part. So I had the Science and Sport gels, which I use, the isotonic energy gels. I had the Infinite Nutrition Premius Fructose Blend, which is a powdered blend that we mix with 20 ounces of water. I had 20 ounces of that during the warm-up. I had 2 bottles of it during the ride, in addition to another bottle of water. So I was hoping that would be enough for the ride. To start, my legs were feeling okay. Again, this is the end. This is a Sunday, by the way. This is the end of the week of training. The day before, I didn't do any riding or running. I did a strength routine for the core, plus yoga for runner's routine. So the legs should have been more recovered than if I had ran or rode yesterday, or the day before, but they definitely, at the end, they started to feel it. I mean, they felt it a lot, as you'll see. Spoiler alert. So here we are, 8.5 minutes in, 288 watt average here. Sitting at 150 beats, still at the back of the pack. And things are starting to cool down a little bit here in terms of the average power, just a bit. But still kind of going hard. At this point, 9 minutes in, I was feeling okay. Trying to remember to just take in fluids often. I'm in my garage, which is cold. It actually wasn't as cold as it normally is, despite it having snowed all day. The temperature actually wasn't that bad. I actually turned the fan on for this one. You'll see me reach down a couple of times to first turn the fan on to the lowest setting, and then I turned it on to a higher setting, which I hadn't done in weeks, if not months, during the winter because it's so cold in the garage. I just did not want any additional cold air. But this one actually, and I didn't warm up with the sweater on like I do when it's really cold. So the warm up here, I got in about a 15-minute warm up. That's where I drank the 2 scoops of the Infinite Blend. So we're doing pretty well here. Again, you can see on the graph there that the average is slowly going down as things inevitably settle in after some early attacks and big pushes. We're going around Fuego Flats here up into Titans Grove, and that's when things will start to string out and group will start to form. I believe this group stays together until we get into the rollers in Titans Grove. So here as we approach the incline going up into Titans Grove, you will see the inevitable push here, and it's a big push by the front group, and this is where things start to separate. So I knew here I needed to be smart, right? Like if Dan was feeling strong and he was going with these accelerations, there's quite a bit of rollers in Titans Grove before you even get to that first Titans Grove KOM. So I was trying to manage and not go too deep too early on, because I knew that I was gonna pay for it, you know, an hour and a half from now or less. So here I'm just trying to keep contact with the group, keep contact with my coach if I can, but you can see things stringing out here despite having gone up briefly into zone 5 there. See someone joking to wait up for them. I assume they're joking. So you can see the group splinter here with my coach in this group, and I see him not make any efforts to catch that front group. So at this point, I'm settling in here, hoping that this is where he wants to be and not where he is because I'm back here. I believe it's the former. But this little group that we have here is one that stays together for a little bit. So here I'm just trying to manage the rollers. I think at this point I was kind of feeling it. Like it wasn't that comfortable. Feeling it in the legs more than anything, right? I'm at 166 beats for the heart rate, which is, you know, moderate for me. My max these days is probably mid to high 180s. But these rollers, it took something out of me just to keep contact with the back of the group. I think this was my first indication that I really knew that I was going to have to manage my efforts on these KOMs. So this first one, I didn't have it in mind, this first one being the upcoming Titans Grove KOM. I didn't have it in mind exactly how long it was going to take. Again, I know it's relatively short, but if the group went hard, it could be just long enough to make me pay for it. So here I'm just trying to settle in, relax, happy that this sort of gradual downhill section with a couple of bumps is coming up before the climb starts. So here we are on the official start of this climb, but it's really like flat and just very gradual inclines until the more steeper section at the end. So here I was happy to remember that that's the way that this climb is. I'm used to climbing the other way, the opposite direction, I guess the reverse, more than this one. So I know that this one is more gradual, but you can see still the group ramps up here couple people up front are going up close to 5 watts a kilogram at times. And I'm not really happy to see that. You can see a little small gap here, indications that, and I got to go up in the Z5 to go back and keep up with the group. So from early on, I would say that none of these climbs were really all that comfortable. So I knew I was in for a long day in the saddle here. So here we go with the actual notable inclines of this climb. You can see people staring across the road here. Dan telling me that, he's recognizing that I'm further back than he would like, and that I should be if I was feeling strong. So I'm going up in the Z5 to try to make contact with the group. So here, as we approach the top of the climb, this gradual incline, that long yellow section, really kind of like seeing how long and gradual that the climb was. Really, I think I had a moment of mental weakness seeing that. Again, like I said, things weren't feeling incredibly strong at this point, but I was hoping that the group would fatigue a little bit and settle down in some of the climbs. Again, this is Z4, Z5 climb, not like crazy hard, but still for where I was feeling more than I wanted to put out. I'm at 173 beats here and losing contact with the front of this group there, and actually laying off a bit because I know that I'll likely catch on the downhill with my rider weight. So here I'm putting in a dig and getting off the pedals, hoping to just coast a little bit and recover, and looking forward to just making contact again with the group. I was confident that I could. Here I am off the pedals again. But it's possible here that this could have been a critical error too. This could have been where I lost the group if I wasn't alert. Because if they were pushing, then me not pushing would have increased that gap. Luckily, I'm able to get back to them, and looking forward to settling in, being at the back of the group, maximizing the draft. I know that there's a little bit of rollers. There's Dan telling me to move up and keep it tight. I know there's a little bit of rollers out of here, so a little more to manage before we get out, and hopefully just recover before the next short Zwift forward KOM. As we start this Zwift KOM, I am hoping that the group doesn't go crazy up it, and I have to put in a big dig to burn matches. This climb I'm really familiar with. I know that a fast climb for me is under 2 minutes. Somewhere between, 2 minutes 10, anywhere above 2 minutes 10 seconds. 2 minutes 15 is probably more like manageable, not all out. And then as you get higher, that's where the times go down. So here I'm kind of glad, I had to do some Z5 up to this point, but kind of glad to be with the group. Was feeling actually okay on this one. More happy with the way this climb is going than the Titans Grove one did. Keeping an eye on this section here. This can be tricky as the flat comes before the incline again. Sometimes people will ramp up here and get away from you if you're not alert, but the group up this climb was more manageable, at a more manageable pace for me. So after the descent from the Zwift Dan rightly so recognized that this climb here, the volcano climb, would be a pivotal one for me in this race. Whether or not I could stay with the group, he was saying, dig deep and stay with the group, stay on his wheel. So that's what I planned to do here. Stay with them or as close to them as I could. So the beginning of this, not too bad. No crazy accelerations. Up around 4 watts a kilogram. So volcano time for me, a fast time is under 8 minutes, and times get slower, more climbs get slower, and more manageable further over 8 minutes. I think my fastest time on the volcano climb is one I may take a while to beat, because it's like it was during a race, I believe, with draft or I forget what, but it's a like low 7s time, I think, which for me is not where I've been recently. I've been climbing well in the last few months, and I think I've gotten some under 7. I used to be over 8 all the time on this climb, so I can get under 7. You can see my 30-day or 90-day PR times there, and a couple right under 7. Sorry, right under 8 minutes. But here you can see, as we're a little of the way in, I'm losing contact with Dan in the front here, so things are tough to start, and I'm wondering, okay, we got a little bit of a flat section here. I'm wondering how much do I push to try to stay with this group. Dan's telling me to dig deep, but I know that and I do catch back up to him here, I know that me digging deep here to catch up is just going to mean having to stay, match their accelerations later on. So here I was actually considering letting go earlier, and just managing the climb in a hard, effort, but at my own pace, rather than trying to stay on Dan's wheel and match the front, which is taxing in its own right. But at this point, I'm still trying to stay. We got some flat coming, so Dan telling me to get close to him. It was hard to stay with him, though. I was kind of on the edge of these climbs the entire time. But, we are 50 minutes in, approaching halfway in terms of distance at 33 kilometers. And so here I'm still with Dan, a couple off the front here, second ahead, and I'm going to give it what I can. I turned the graph off there, which I've mentioned before I will do so as not to have that be a visual indicator of my power I'm putting out. Sometimes that can be a mental weakness if I see that, my power dropped from an average of Z5 to lower when I was, pushing hard. The reality is that it is just what it is, but it's just something I do to sort of help a little bit. Here, I was happy to see that there were a few riders up front, actually. I wasn't paying attention to the rider list, like how far ahead people were. So I was, you can see me kind of digging deep here with my body position there. I was really kind of feeling it. So I'm at 172 beats after 50 minutes, 284 watt average. But it's hard to keep contact here, and I know that we're almost at the top, so I know it'd be a shame if I couldn't just get with the group and make it over the top with them. I could for sure recover on the decline. So I'm slowly losing contact here, pushing, sometimes 4 watts a kilogram, but not quite enough to stay with the group. And I think here is where I kind of let go. That was the point where I'm like, all right, they're up there and Dan's telling me to push, but I just know that I don't have it in me to get back to that group. So I'm just trying to do what I can to maybe stay a few seconds behind. I'm not sure. I mean, I definitely could have pushed like more here to get back to them, but the way I was feeling, I think it would have just taken too much out of me. You can see me there with my head down, rocking back and forth, just trying to summon some power from the watt gods, but it wasn't coming. And again, I knew we're only halfway in, almost exactly halfway through now, and still 2 climbs to go. So I was again just trying to keep the gap as close as I could, knowing that I wasn't going to make it back up to them by the top of the climb. But I was feeling it here. So here we are at the top of the climb. Rider grist there, went past me and then stopped, and I think quit the race. So I'm at 17th place, 25 seconds behind the group in front. Dan's telling me to keep pushing, and at this point I'm wondering if I can catch back up to that group. So I have a decision to make here. I could kind of recover a bit on this downhill or see what kind of time I can make. I know the downhills are a place where I can make comparatively more time up than others who aren't 95 kilograms. Use the rider weight to my advantage, but again, that ride took a lot out of me, and I'm making some decisions in my mind here. Hovering at 24 seconds to the group ahead. Group with the coach there, taking some time to get some blood to the legs, standing up. Hoping that this is enough at this point to go 61 kilometers on a super tuck. I imagine this had to have been the right thing to do. In my head, I'm thinking, do I need to push this entire time if I am trying to catch that group? At this point, I was trying to just see if I could make up time to the group. So I think the decision is correct to get the super tuck when I can. I don't think me pushing would have gotten more speed than I could here. I'm not exactly sure, but you'll see when it gets a little less steep, under negative 4% gradient or negative 5, I'll get on the pedals, and when it gets above that, I get a push and get the super tuck, get some liquids in, and try to recover. I think at this point I had it in my mind even before I think Dan started messaging me, which you'll see coming up, that I was going to try to see if I could make it back to that group, knowing that they likely weren't going to be going super hard before the next climb. And if I was going to catch them, that the section in between this climb and the next would be the place. The next climb being the Titans Grove reverse climb, I believe, with the Zwift KOM reverse after that. So here I am putting on the power, just trying to see. So I'm 21 seconds to the group ahead. I know that I'm making gains, and I think around this time I decide that I might just try to keep on the power, keep it above 300 watts for sure on the flats, and do sort of a time trial effort to see if I could get back to them. So we're still descending off the volcano here, and 20 seconds to that group now, and I'm hoping that the efforts here in the downhill will help me get back to them, and that they don't push. I'm looking at their watts as well. They're still descending as well, I believe. So there goes Dan saying that I'll come back if I give it a good go. He's gonna manage the group as best he can. Try to keep them subdued as much as he can, and try to help me get back. So here I'm getting some super tuck in and waiting for these flats and seeing what kind of effort I can put, considering how I'm feeling, what that climb took out of me, how much I was able to recover, or how little I was able to recover on this downhill, and just buckle up and see what kind of gains I can make to the group, still hovering at 21, 22 seconds. So here I've got 19 seconds to the group, and this is where I'm trying to buckle up and get it around 300 watts, if not more. I'm constantly considering what this is going to take out of me. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out just exactly what kind of effort I should and need to put in to get back. So I end up doing, I don't know the exact average, but I was targeting around 300, right? Around that zone 3-ish mark. And there's Dan telling me that they're not going hard. I can TT and get there. And I'm curious what kind of watts Dan would have had me TT at, because I could have pushed harder than this for longer and gotten back quicker, but by the time I would have gotten them quicker before the next climb, right, and had time to recover, but I would have been more spent, right? Or I could keep it at this and risk it taking a longer time to get to them, if I get to them at all, and be that much closer to the next climb by the time I get to them and not have as much time to recover before that climb. So here I'm just doubling down though, and I'm like, all right, let me see if I can just put the watts in. You see me trying to adjust my body position and sort of will some power here. So I see him coming back, right? 15 seconds. It's slow, but it's coming. But this effort is tough, right? So at this point, when I see him, the gap decreasing, I'm wondering, should I be putting in more? You can see me with a little sustained section of just a bit higher watts here, just trying to make it back to the group sooner. Whenever I saw the gap increase, it was at 15, now it's at 16. That was a little disheartening. I'm like, oh, my efforts aren't bringing them back. This is where I am, still trying to just put out some consistent watts. You can see the gap increasing there to 17 now. So that played with me mentally. Still sticking with it, still keeping on it, but when you see the gap increase there, I'm like, all right, maybe I need to back off and just manage the rider behind me. There seems to be only one other rider anywhere close behind me, that being Jay Dubuck, currently at 51 seconds, and I can see that they are putting in higher watts than I am. So I'm like, well, they might get back. And so when Dan says here, now or never 2 minutes, this is when I decide to increase. And I'm like, you know what? I remember seeing 1 hour, 4 minutes, 15 seconds. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a little push until I had it in my mind. Dan said 2 minutes. I said, you know what? I'm going to try until 1 hour, 6 minutes, 15 seconds. So you see me increase the watts here a bit on average. So the group is at 14 seconds, which is great considering they were at 17 a bit ago. So here I've got my head down and just trying to get the watts out, but I'm feeling it at this point. Definitely feeling it and wondering what I'm going to be like by the time I catch them, if I catch them. So the gap is coming down, seems to be working, but again, thinking, what is this going to take out of me as this next climb looms? Dan giving me encouragement there, saying I'm only 10 seconds behind the group now, so it's definitely working. Seems like the catch is going to happen at this point, so now it's about, you see me with a deep breath there, now it's about what is it going to be like after I catch them? How much can I recover? See my facial expressions. This was a tough effort at this point, and knowing that there were still 27 kilometers to go with 2 climbs, questioning my life choices, but I'm like, you know what? I've made my bed. I'm laying in it. I'm gonna catch or die trying at this point. Some encouragement from the rider Boyko there, telling me to come on. So I am putting in the effort. Gap is coming down, 9 seconds now. I didn't even notice there that someone joked that once I catch them, they're going to smash forward. And there you go, Dan saying he's going to hold the group. So 7-8 seconds now, so slowly coming. And at this point, I'm like, that gap is not coming down soon So, but again, still committed, still looking to get there. 6 seconds now. At this point, I don't even think I can see the riders ahead. I don't think I noticed that they were there until I had my head down here. I'm pretty sure until we make this left turn. Like, I had my head down this entire time, so I didn't see them. And I think until we make this left turn here is when I saw them ahead, and I was like, okay, or maybe here. If I look up, no, I don't. So I think right here is when I saw, and I'm like, okay, there they are. I'm gonna make it. Then I've got to manage the recovery for, it's not that long until we get to Titans Grove reverse. So I was wondering just what this sustained catch to the group would take out of me. So you'll see me here make a decision to get a banana. I think this was probably a bad decision, but mentally I felt like I needed a little something to give me a boost. My legs were feeling it. I was hoping the potassium would help. So, but that banana, it sat in my stomach, and I felt it. It made it hard. I'm assuming it was a banana, but it made it a little hard to eat other stuff or get other nutrition in. Made me second guess drinking at all, and if I did, how much I was going to drink. I wasn't close to anything coming up really, but I was getting close. And you see here Dan telling me to get a gel. So I finished the banana and I decide I'm gonna get a gel, which there I go, which may have been a doubly wrong decision after having the banana. Likely I should have not had the banana and only the gel. And if I had the banana, maybe I shouldn't have had the gel. I'm not sure. Combination of those in succession may not have been good. But here, happy to have some recovery, but knowing that some rollers are coming that are gonna, considering that an hour ago or whenever it was, 45 minutes ago, it was tough through these rollers. I know it's gonna be taxing now and all that before we even get to the climb. I just know that this is going to be sort of a pivotal moment in the race for me. I knew with that catch and how it was climbing on the volcano and previous to that, that getting up the Titans Grove reverse, which is a higher average grade for a shorter time than the forward, I knew it was going to take a lot of what I had. 23 kilometers to go. Just wasn't sure what I could give at this point. So here trying to manage these rollers, keep contact, and see what I can do on this climb. So back there a bit ago, you saw an acceleration happen that I wasn't able to match and had to push and catch back up. Here, as we start the climb, there's a gap to the group, and I just know that I'm not going to be able to match what they're going to push up this climb. They're putting out 4.5, 4.6 up at the front, and so I'm just trying to give this a good go. I know it's relatively short. Trying to get up on the pedals here. I'm up around 3.8, 6 to 3.8-ish at times, but not enough to make it back to the group, not enough to even stay with the group if I was with them. And this is what I got at this point, so I'm feeling it in the old legs here. You see the grimace on my face, and I'm just I'm happy that this is short, coming up on sort of the halfway point of it, probably. Trying to keep a little bit of consistency in higher watts, but at this point it's sort of survival mode. I don't know at this point if I was looking back to the rider behind, Jay Dubuk. I remember when I did pay attention to that rider that they were closer to 2 minutes behind me. And a minute 54 is what I remember. So I'm wondering if me noticing them happens probably after the top of this climb, when I'm on the downhill and they're going slower uphill is probably when that time gap happens. And so now with 20K to go, I know that my race is all about what can I do to the end here, and see if I can figure my race is with me and the rider behind, and seeing if I can keep them away. Again, I wasn't noticing them at this point because I don't remember them being a minute and a half behind. I remember them being closer to 2 minutes behind. So there we go at the top of that climb there, and it is hurting. You can see my face there. 2 minutes 17 seconds for that climb. Dan and their group did it 16 seconds faster. So here I'm looking forward to the downhill, but knowing I kind of, if I can, want to keep on the watts at this point, even though the group is 15 seconds ahead and I close that gap before, I know that it's not an effort that I'm going to put out again to close. So I'm just, again, right now the decision is, what can I put out, what can I sustain that can keep the rider behind away, if I can. So here I decide I'm going to go back to sort of those TT watts that I put on to catch the group. Not quite as high, but I'm going to put in a consistent sort of high Z2, low Z3 effort and hope that that's enough. If I can sustain it, still got 18 kilometers to go here. Hope that that's enough to keep the rider behind away. So here's where the wheels start to fall off a little bit. You can see I'm no longer in that low Z3, high Z2, and the watts drop and the legs sort of go at this point. I can feel it, so I'm trying to kind of set a new target in my mind now. I think now I am noticing how, I have been noticing how far back the rider is behind and wondering, okay, let me try some Z2. This is like mid Z2 here to see if that's enough to keep the rider away. I'll notice that the rider behind does often go over 3 watts a kilogram, where I'm mostly under, so I know that that's not going to do me any favors on the flats with my watts. I can gain a little bit of advantage on the flats, but I know that if that trend continues of me around 2.5 or lower and them over 3 watts a kilogram, that it's going to be a tough ask for me to keep them away. So, but things are sort of dropping off here. So I'm just trying to keep on the pedals, just trying to summon some consistency here, but things are slowly going downhill. So here's an interesting time, right? I'm trying to hold on to these Z2 watts. This downhill comes and I get a little lower, even into some Z1 at certain points. And when the flat comes, you can see that I don't pick it back up to where I was previously, enjoying a little bit of time off here when I shouldn't. And you can see me going a little lower here, really feeling it. And what you'll see is the classic sort of effort to try to get those watts back up. So here it comes here, and I'm like, all right, let me focus. Rider behind, still at minute 45 seconds behind. So I know that I'm keeping that gap, and here I'm just gonna try to get those watts back up, summon some power. But you can see it doesn't last that long. It's very subtle. You can see me going back up into Z3 a little bit there, but it's short-lived as I realize the legs just aren't cooperating. My stomach at this point is feeling it as well. I think at a certain point, if it hasn't happened already, I turned the fan down, as I mentioned earlier, because I was getting chilly. And so here, this was tough. I know 12K to go, 1 climb to go, that being the Zwift KOM reverse, which is like 4 minutes, I think, on a good day. And I know the way I'm feeling that's going to be, relatively quite a bit longer. So I'm just trying to, so the gap to the rider behind still sort of the same. And so here I just know that it's going to be a tough go to keep them away, but I'm still resigned to trying to give it what I got just keep some power at the pedals, but it's really getting, the legs are just not a lot of power in them at this point. Here's another section where it's a considerable drop in average watts over sustained time. I'm going down under 200 at points, and once I get there, the mind and the body are like, okay, this feels more comfortable. I can see now that gap to the rider behind is they're consistently pushing over 3 watts a kilogram still. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep them away. 10K to go, still ways to go here, 6 miles. And I'm just trying to see what I can do to the end. Know that I gave it a good effort. I'm running over in my head the scenarios I mentioned earlier about what could have been if I had made different decisions earlier on. But here, yeah, things are, no pun intended, but slow and slowly declining. Here we are at the official start of the Zwift Reverse, and I know this is going to be a slog. Rider behind, just 50 seconds now. Absolutely, they're going to catch me on this climb, so now it's a battle between me and myself. Any demons I have, keeping them out. I am really feeling it. The legs are really hurting in the quads at this point. Trying to find Watson some pedal stroke technique. At this point, I'm, when sitting down, thinking of something I'd heard years ago, which is imagining that the heel of your shoe is scraping the ground to try to maximize your downstrokes. So when I sit down, that's what I'm thinking about at points, is just trying to be as efficient as I can in these low watt times and sore leg times or fatigue leg times, and trying to give it what I can, grinding at 50 RPM up this short steep incline, watching the rider behind catch. Really tough at this point, really tough. Just knowing that I gotta summon what I can to finish, and finish as relatively strong as I can. It's gonna be weak, but it can be strong for where I am, and that's what I'm hoping to do. So there we go. There's that ride done. 15th place. Yeah, really tough. Hour 53 minutes, 3 seconds. We can see there 2.8 watt kilogram average at 264 watts. Surprised to see that there were only 18 riders again that finished. PR on the Bigfoot Hills route. I've done it 3 times, 2 in 2023, I believe. So this is my fastest time. Racing score decreased there. So glad to have gotten this one done again. Always good to finish a hard effort and get something done that is tough. Battle the demons at the end. Manage the pain. Manage the placement. The riders around me, the group, the catch. A lot to think about here. So checking the stats here, 1,700 calories burned, approximately. 70.3 kilometers over there, hour and 53 minutes. 142 stress points, 262 watt average. So good effort, good ride. Appreciate you all watching. Let me know what you thought. Leave some comments. It helps. Like the video, subscribe if you're so inclined to get notifications. Ways to support the channel besides subscribing are in the description. I appreciate you all watching, and I will talk to you on the next video.